It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does, and great to have you with us on this Monday edition of the show. Riding solo today. It's a day off for our friend Sam Yarnell. I will be joined in this program by our friend Ryan Ballengee, Golf News Net. He joins us coming up in about 10 minutes to recap what we didn't think we would actually have on Monday, and that was a 3-hole aggregate playoff for the Players' Championship, as after 72 holes, JJ Spaun and Rory McIlroy were both tied at 12 under, so they played a 3-hole playoff this morning, with McIlroy getting the win in that 3-hole aggregate playoff for his second Players' Championship. We'll talk about it with our friend Ryan Ballengee from Golf News Net coming up in about 10 minutes. We'll also be joined by our friend Jason Cole, who does a great job, NFL Hall of Fame selector, or I should say a pro football Hall of Fame selector, NFL author, NFL writer, somebody who's covered the game for a long time. Talked to him about the Bengals making some moves and what's going on with these quarterbacks in NFL free agency and sort of what can we expect. Everybody's trying to look in their crystal ball and figure out what's happening with Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. We'll get to that as well. Some baseball talk. Tokyo series about to get underway. Mookie Betts has been under the weather. Doesn't look like he's going to play in that Tokyo series. He's lost a ton of weight. We'll talk about that. There's some other MLB news to get to as well. I went to my first NASCAR event ever this weekend. I have some observations from that, and congratulations to a Connecticut guy in Josh Berry, my old home state, where I still have family, where I spent the first 20 years of my life. Josh Berry from Berlin, Connecticut. Your winner wins his first NASCAR Cup Series event. We'll talk about that as well. Odds and ends, a whole bunch more. But we start things out with the NCAA Tournament. The brackets are here. The brackets are here on both the men's and women's side of the tournament. No shock, Duke. Your top overall seed, the prohibitive favorite in this tournament. They are a 1 seed along with Auburn, Florida, and Houston. But I got to be honest, as much as people are going to sit here and talk about, Duke, and they are huge favorites in this thing. As much as people are going to sit here and talk about Duke, I think to me this whole tournament is about UConn. This whole tournament is about whether the Huskies can do something that we haven't seen in this generation of college basketball, and that is win 3 straight men's NCAA tournaments. That to me is the story of this tournament. Everything else is secondary. And that to me is the main story. It's about whether or not Dan Hurley, remember, he turned down the Los Angeles Lakers head coaching job. No matter how many times Shem Sharania will want to tell you that JJ Redick was the top candidate. He turned down the Los Angeles Lakers coaching job. A job which right now looks a lot better with LeBron and Luka there, to take this Huskies team to a third NCAA tournament with an opportunity to win a third straight national championship. To me, that is still the story of this tournament. UConn and Oklahoma, as I said, they will play in the first game, and UConn will be a favorite in that game at 4.5 points, depending on where you get the line. But it's all about UConn to me, trying to win another championship here. And look, I mean, that to me is the story. And again, they'll get Oklahoma in the first round. I think they're 4.5 point favorites. You know what's interesting, and I was looking this up, I was trying to see how many favorites, teams that were favored to win a national championship. And we know UConn did it last year. But I was trying to figure out how many teams had actually won a national championship after being favored before the tournament. UConn, obviously, as I said, did it last year. Duke's trying to do it. Here's the amazing thing, how wide open it was last year when UConn won it. They were plus 1,100 to win the NCAA tournament last year. And that was a favorite to win. Duke is plus 290 this year. There is a huge separation between the top seeds in this tournament, viewed as favorites, and everybody else. Duke at plus 290 right now. Florida at plus 390. Auburn at plus 500. And Houston at plus 650. And then it's a drop off to plus 2,000 if you're talking about Alabama. Now, if you're talking about UConn, you can get the Huskies right now. And this is amazing for a team that's won back-to-back championships. And remember, you could have gotten UConn really cheap the year they won it in 2023. But UConn is plus 12,000 right now over on FanDuel. Let that sink in. Marinate in that, as our old buddy Anita Marks used to say. UConn, who's won back-to-back championships and is as capable of anybody as beating any good team on any day. UConn is plus 12,000 to win the whole thing. Think that's not going to be some motivation for that team? We'll have more on that tomorrow on the show. On the women's side of the ledger, you've got the women's NCAA tournament. And look, let's be honest about it here for a second. South Carolina has been a juggernaut here over the last couple of years. I think we all sort of recognize what Dawn Staley and her team have been able to accomplish, and they're going to get another opportunity here in this NCAA tournament to do it again with the number one seed, obviously, UCLA, the top overall seed for the entire tournament. And then you talk about a couple other teams in Texas and USC. And look, this is the most wide open women's tournament I think we've seen ever. You know, with maybe 10 to 12 teams actually having a chance to win the whole thing. If you're wondering about UConn and Gino Auriemma and this team trying to win a national championship in this greater era of parity in women's college basketball, well, UConn is a 2 seed. They will play Arkansas State in their opening game. And it'll be fun to watch on the women's side. We'll definitely get some guests on to talk about the women's side of the tournament here over the next couple of days. But it's about to crank up, man. March Madness. It is here in full effect, and I for one can't wait. Can't wait to watch all the excitement. We got the first 4 coming up here in the next 24 hours or so as well. So we'll see who advances to get the snot beaten out of them by a 1 seed. And we'll have it covered for you here over the next few weeks on the show. So looking forward to that. All right. More on that on the show tomorrow. As I said, Don Memori from the Hartford Courant. Rory McIlroy wins the Players. We got that covered for you coming up next. Welcome back to this Monday edition of SportsWrap. Oh, there is still NFL free agency to talk about. And talk about it we will with our good friend Jason Cole, NFL author, writer. Book's behind me. I'm not reaching back there. It's Monday. I just don't have the energy today. I spent all weekend out watching cars make left-hand turns for 260 laps. I'm done. That's all I got.
Jason Page, I can't see you. That's the one problem I got here.
It's all
Are
right.
you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Here I am.
Okay, there we go. This is a much better conversation.
Yeah, it is better when you could actually see me. The audience can see both of us, which is all that matters. So, everybody was talking about, oh my God, the window closing on the Cincinnati Bengals. And then all of a sudden they say, you know what, we'll take care of the Higgins and Chase situation to get them both signed long term. The Trey Hendrickson situation still needs to play itself out. But, I mean, this has got to be a huge sigh of relief for this organization and its fan base.
Yeah, for the fan base, the organization probably is gritting its teeth having to pay people money. The Browns are not exactly. They don't open the wallet very often.
The Bengals, you mean the Bengals? You said the Browns.
Yeah,
you meant
I'm sorry.
The Browns don't.
The Browns will spend on occasion. Yes, I just did. But yeah, the Bengals, the Brown family, and the Bengals, I should say. Don't really like to pay players, but they were sort of forced to in this one because Higgins and Jamar Chase happened to be represented by the same agent. So he had them cornered. into making sure that both guys get paid. And Chase is probably worth even more than what he got paid, I think. But the deal is a good one, and he gets to stay with the quarterback that he loves, and it's a great situation.
I know they struggled. I know they struggled defensively last year, but I mean, my God, if there's ever a team that screams turnaround from last year to next year, it does feel like Cincinnati, because they lost a lot of close games, Jason.
Yeah, if they got to play a slightly better defense and more consistent defense. So if they can do that, yeah, and keep the quarterback healthy. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but you would think that this is a team that could easily flip it, be a playoff contender. Division is, of course, pretty tough, with Baltimore sitting there and the Steelers and their defense. Excuse me.
That's okay.
But no, I love this Bengals team. They have one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league. If you've got that, you're at a great starting point, and then you got weapons next to them. It's an amazing combination.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. What is going on with this sort of holding pattern we see with Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers? I don't know what's going on with Kirk Cousins in Atlanta. I know they picked up his option, or the bonus, the $10 million, whatever it is, to stay on the roster, which buys them some more time. You've got the Browns with an opening. You've got the Giants with an opening. You've got the Steelers with an opening, and these guys all just sort of floating around out there. I mean, I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball. Your guess is probably as good as anybody's right now.
Yeah, I mean, the Aaron Rodgers thing to the Vikings is obviously the wrench in that one. Trying to figure out, what does Kevin O'Connell want to do? Does he want to, sort of hitch his wagon to Rodgers as he's got a team that's a contender, or does he want to make the switch fully to JJ McCarthy? And there's some philosophical issues that go with that. How much do you believe in the young quarterback or not? How much do you believe in Aaron Rodgers and wanting to put up with his crap? Is part of it. But normally talent wins out. He still believes there's talent there. Pittsburgh's doing the same thing with Aaron Rodgers, waiting on him. So as long as Aaron has options, he's going to wait it out, because he's not one of those guys who's like, hey, let me force the issue. He's the guy who wants to have control of the situation himself, which I always say is part of the problem. So that's the domino that has to fall. Rodgers has to fall. Once Rodgers falls, Russell Wilson falls, Kirk Cousins falls, and everything else kind of goes into place.
I made a point on Rodgers last week that, and I haven't heard other people say this. Maybe they have. I don't go too crazy listening to what many other people have to say, which could be a problem in my life. Maybe I need to see a shrink about that. But anyway, in the case of Rodgers, I made the argument last week. If I were him, I wouldn't sign anywhere. Because other than the Vikings, if you want to make an argument of a chance to win a Super Bowl, there aren't the other opportunities, the Browns, the Giants, the Steelers. I don't think he's winning a Super Bowl with any of those teams anyway. If the idea is to be on a contender and win, why not wait, see if somebody gets hurt, which inevitably will happen on a contender. It happens almost every year. The Cowboys last year with Dak Prescott. Does he actually have to sign somewhere for week 1?
Yeah, he does. I mean, he's at a stage of his career. He needs as many reps as he can get with somebody.
I've heard somebody else made that argument to me as well.
Yeah, quarterback is the ultimate reps position. It's a position where you need to know the guys that are around you. When you don't, it's a problem. I think part of the decline of Aaron Rodgers the last couple of years is the thinking that he doesn't have to be around a team, and he doesn't have to be with. So I saw Dan Marino at the end of his career. He took basically one offseason off before his last year. He was terrible, which was part physical and part just the reality of the situation. But look, I think Aaron Rodgers, if you're a quarterback, you have to be a leader. If part of being a leader is being willing to make sacrifices for the betterment of the team, part of doing things that are for the betterment of the team, or showing up for practices even when you don't want to. And buying into the fact that you've got to work on your communication, Not only the way you talk to people, but the way you just look at them out on the field. So I I think he's got to be there, and he's got to show commitment. And I'll say this: if he doesn't sign really soon, if I'm the Steelers, I'm just like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I'm moving on. If you want to be at a contender, we're here. If you don't want to be at a contender, go play for the Giants. Have a good time. We don't care.
What do you final 30 seconds here because I got to go. What do you do if you're the Giants? Would you try to make a full court press to get Rodgers, or do you try to do this via the draft?
I would try and do it via the draft, but I wouldn't go out of my way on either one of these two quarterbacks there. Like, I'm not going to trade up for Cam Ward if that's what it takes, and I may wait it out on Shedeur Sanders.
Okay.
Or wait for Jackson Dart to win the guys later on.
Yeah. Jason Cole, author, NFL writer, Hall of Fame selector. I always appreciate you, my friend. Have yourself a great week.
Anytime. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Ah, yes, it is. We're coming back. Welcome back to this Monday edition of Sports Wrap. Well, I didn't anticipate having to get up early to watch a three-hole aggregate playoff to decide the Players' Championship on Monday morning, but here I was doing just that, which means we've got a quick turnaround for this guy, Ryan Ballengee, Golf News Net, hanging out with us on the show. Kind enough to give us some time after Rory McIlroy wins his second Players' Championship, his second tournament of 2025, dispatching of JJ Spaun in that three-hole aggregate playoff. And it's kind of weird. A lot of times in these situations, you know, when you see somebody blow a lead, like Rory had, I think he had a three-shot lead with 5 holes left on Sunday, and it winds up going to a playoff, you'd think, oh, no, they're going to go off the deep end, especially with some of the failings that Rory has had in his career, some of which I will say is overrated when there's another stat that I'll throw out to sort of compete with that. But he came out today, and I mean, he just laid down the gauntlet on 16 when he pipes one 337, you know, up the left-hand side of the fairway and sets himself up for an easy birdie while Spaun is sort of struggling out of the gate. It seemed like Rory had a really good plan going into this playoff.
Yeah, he knew he was going off first because the PGA Tour changed their rules last year that for a playoff, you no longer drew numbers out of a hat to determine who went first, second, third, whatever. It was first in, first out. So he was first in. JJ Spaun was second, so he goes first. He knew if he obliterated a drive, he was going to put a lot of pressure on Spaun, who's way shorter off the tee, and that's exactly what happened. He's playing downwind, like you said, hits it 330-something right down the middle, leaves himself a wedge in. Spaun responds by flaring a drive to the right. He knows he can't get there, or he's going to take a lot of luck to get there. Winds up putting himself in the front right bunker. McIlroy easily 2 putts, establishes a lead, and then sets himself, more importantly, I think, to go first on 17.
Yep.
He again puts himself on the green, puts all the pressure on Spaun. Spaun makes the mistake of looking in McIlroy's bag to figure out what club McIlroy hit.
I saw it.
And then he goes and hits an 8-iron instead, and clubs up one because McIlroy hits a 9-iron. But McIlroy didn't hit a flush 9-iron because he hits that 165 yards. He took 20 or 30 yards off of it, 3/4 9-iron, hits the putting surface. Spaun flushes it with his 8-iron, never touches grass, goes over the green, and that's pretty much all she wrote.
Yeah, and it's funny, when I saw him look into the bag and saw Rory take the 9, I thought he would take the 9.
Yeah.
That's what I thought would happen. So I was shocked. But again, this is a learning experience for Spaun. And by the way, before we go crazy and get into the whole Rory conversation, which we will, Spawn's played really well. What's he got? 3 top 5s or something like that, or 3 top 10s? He's like the only guy to do that this year. I mean, he's had a really good season. Everybody likes to talk about journeyman. Oh my God, David versus Goliath. The guy's ranked in the 50s worldwide. I mean, that's not terrible.
He's a great golfer. I mean, and he's starting to kind of come around on the self-belief that he is a top 75 golfer in the world, top 50 golfer in the world, whatever moniker bar you want to play on it. But it is a different scenario when you're in your first career PGA Tour playoff, which this was for him today. What a weird stage to do it. Typically, there's sudden death. They're 1 hole at a time. You don't have to think about beyond the next couple of shots. And this is a different animal. And Rory McIlroy has a ton of experience in playoffs. He's got 5 PGA Tour playoffs. Well, today was his 6th, so he's 4-2 in playoffs. He's got a ton of match play experience at the highest level in Ryder Cups. So he's been on this stage way more times than JJ Spaun was. And I think Spaun made a couple of mistakes in response to what his opponent was doing instead of kind of playing the game that got him to this point.
And say this about Rory, and this is the stat I was going to throw out, and I saw it on Golf Channel when I was watching after the match ended, that for all of the failings and late collapses that we might want to talk about with Rory, I think I saw the number that he's come back from being down in the fourth round or not the fourth round leader 15 times to win a tournament. So you might want to talk about, well, he missed this putt, he missed that putt. I mean, 15 times in his career, he hasn't been the leader going into the final round and won a tournament.
Yeah, the conventional wisdom is McIlroy's a better chaser than a leader, to be honest with you. I mean, he's won 28 times on the PGA Tour, right? So he's won 15 times without the lead and 13 times with it. Well, that's kind of started to even out over the years where he has become a better leader, and he's also always been a good follower. And he went out yesterday, he went birdie eagle to start, applied the immediate pressure to the lead. Everyone started to come back to him. He knew what he was trying to do at that start yesterday, and yeah, it didn't work out in the end to win in regulation, but he applied the same tactic in the playoff. Apply pressure right away, make your opponent make all the decisions based on what you've done, and JJ Spaun crumbled. And I think most people would have crumbled in that situation.
How much does this help sort of take some of the stain off of, if there was even any stain, what took place last week with him in the practice round, pulling the phone away from, this golfer who's this young Texas golfer who's obviously had some success collegiately, and sort of everything that ensued after that, where he was like, I don't want to talk about it. How much does this help sort of alleviate that?
I mean, I think if you've got something against McIlroy for what happened in the practice round on Tuesday, you're going to carry that regardless if he's going home with the trophy or not.
What did you think of it, Ryan?
I don't think it makes either of them look particularly good. I think it's preposterous that the kid Luke Potter went after and heckled his hero, basically, the Players' Championship after winning a collegiate event. I also think it's kind of silly that McIlroy took his friend's phone to delete the video, knowing that there are 50 people standing around the tee box, all with phones like this, waiting to take video of what was happening. So it wasn't the only copy of the video. In the end, I understand why McIlroy did it. I think it's way better than Iga Swiatek, swiping and slamming a ball basically at the back of the ball kid. So, take your pick for what bothers you as a sports fan. But if it didn't bother you in the first place, then him winning doesn't change that. If it did bother you, him winning probably doesn't make it any better that he did that in the first place.
But does it lend any credence to the narrative of him, sort of being mentally fragile?
I mean, yes, to a degree, but I think we've always kind of had this feeling that when McIlroy plays his most confident golf, when he's got the swagger, then he's almost unbeatable. And when he doesn't, it's a lot harder for him to win. But I will give him a ton of credit. He did not play his best golf this week. He hit 47% of the fairways all week at TPC Sawgrass. And he's only the second player in the history of this tournament to have won it when hitting less than half the fairways. So he did it without his best stuff. His strongest asset is driving off the tee. And he found it when he needed it in the playoff. Well, at least on the first hole. The 18th hole we'll put aside for a second. But he found it when he needed to apply the pressure in the playoff, and he did that. But more importantly, he found a way to win with the other stuff that he's learned to incorporate into his game.
Ryan Ballengee, Golf News Net. You can find it streaming, podcasting, all of the good stuff when it comes to golf. I appreciate you, my friend, on short notice with the Players' Championship ending in the playoff on Monday. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
We're coming back. Welcome back to Sports Wrap. Good to have you with us. Jason Page riding solo today. Thanks to Ryan Ballengee and Jason Cole for hanging out with us on the program. Let's switch gears, talk some baseball. We'll do some NASCAR in 10 minutes. I want to talk about switching gears. Can I make it through this entire segment without scratching my nose? I have an itch in my nose. I am going to attempt not to scratch it because it's going to look weird if I do. All right, let's talk some baseball. Look, Mookie Betts is dealing with an illness and has lost 15 pounds. I mean, this is insane. I wish I could get sick and lose 15 pounds sometimes. But Mookie Betts is struggling with an illness that looks like it's going to keep him out of the Tokyo series, which starts the official Major League Baseball season, which I think is one of the dumbest things that Major League Baseball does. One of the things we used to hold most sacred about Major League Baseball, and I get that baseball has thrown out all of its sacred norms here over the last few years with pitch clocks and bigger bases, and you can't block home plate and you can't throw over more than twice. I mean, all of these different things that baseball does. But opening day in Tokyo, and I say this with no disdain towards the Japanese. I love the Japanese. I love the Japanese. I just don't understand why baseball does this. You're going to have the Major League Baseball season opening up on Tuesday morning at 6:10 in the morning East Coast time. For those of us on the West Coast, I'm based in Las Vegas, that means 3:10 a.m. first pitch. And I'm as big a baseball fan as you will find, if not the biggest that you will find. And I ain't getting up at 3:10 in the morning to watch the Dodgers and Cubs play in Tokyo. I'm sorry, I'm just not doing it. But this is what Major League Baseball does. And I understand wanting to make the game international. The World Baseball Classic is a wonderful thing. But you have these games, and then you've got the rest of Major League Baseball starting its season, 10 days later? It just makes no sense. Just makes no sense at all to me. Not a fan of it. But Mookie Betts will not be a part of it when it does get started, dealing with this illness that he has been battling. And again, he's lost 15 pounds as a result of this. So the Dodgers will be without him to start the season. Joey Gallo has been released by the worst team in Major League Baseball in the Chicago White Sox. He's been released. So what's he going to do now? Well, reportedly, Joey Gallo is going to become a pitcher. Now, look, he's got a cannon for an arm. Anybody who's watched him over the years when he did play in the field, when he wasn't a DH hitting 200 or less, knows that Joey Gallo can throw it hard. He's got a great arm. And he was a pitcher in high school. And, hey, you're Joey Gallo, you're 31, 32 years old, whatever he is, and you want to try and stay in Major League Baseball? You want to try and keep your job? Try and see if you can run this thing out as long as you can? You go down to the minors, you try and turn yourself into a pitcher, and you see what you can do. I mean, what else do you do at this point if you're Joey Gallo, whose career, and it really is amazing. And I'm going to look this up on the fly while we're sitting here doing the show on television. It really is a remarkable thing to think about Joey Gallo's career. Because at one point, he was one of the most feared power hitters in the league. And then he went to the Yankees, and it went horribly off the rails. With the Yankees, he hit 160. Then he hit 159. Then he hit 162. Then he hit 177. And last year with the Nationals, he hit 161. The last 5 years, Joey Gallo has collected a Major League Baseball paycheck while not being able to hit higher than 177. Let that sink in for a second. It's remarkable. And this is a guy that, in his best years in Texas, had a couple of big years. 80 RBIs, 92 RBIs. Always struck out a lot. But still could put bat on ball to some degree that he was able to give himself an opportunity to stay in the league. And now Joey Gallo is going to turn to pitching because the whole hitting thing hasn't worked out that well. Hey, did you think it could go any worse for the Yankees when it comes to trying to keep their rotation healthy? Well, if you thought it couldn't get worse from the Yankees, you were wrong. It could. Right-hander Clark Schmidt scratched from his Grapefruit League start against the Blue Jays that he was scheduled to make on Monday night. Some shoulder soreness, according to Aaron Boone. He'll have a bullpen session instead. Schmidt was 5-5 last year in 16 starts for the Yankees with a 2.85 ERA, and now they'll have to figure out what to do if he isn't ready right now. Remember, the Yankees have already lost Garrett Cole, Tommy John surgery. And Luis Heel is dealing with a lat strain right now. So the Yankees, without those two guns, we talked about it on the show, I think it was last week. But we talked about it on the show last week. I mean, Marcus Stroman is looking really good right now. Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, Stroman, Schmidt, Will Warren, heck, Carlos Carrasco, who they brought in off, I don't want to say the scrap heap. That's sort of a derogatory term. But nobody's feeling sorry for the Yankees right now. And again, the odds makers still love them. It's a remarkable thing. How the Yankees are still somehow favorites to win anything. And they are favorites to win the American League right now at plus 390. It is a remarkable thing to see. I went to my first NASCAR race this weekend. I have observations and a thought on a win for somebody who hadn't won one before. Coming up in 10 minutes, we'll wrap it up with odds and ends. Again, Sammy Arnell has the day off. So it is truly Sports Wrap with Jason Page and only Jason Page. Vlad Lewisant will hang out on the show with me tomorrow. Don Mamore will be here from the Hartford Courant. Does a great job covering the Yukon Huskies. We'll get some thoughts with him as the Huskies embark on an attempt to win a third straight national championship. So we'll talk to him about that. But I got to do something here. And I when I don't want to say I'm wrong in how I'm going to describe this, but I've always had certain preconceived notions about NASCAR and about the world of NASCAR and the people that go to NASCAR races and what I always thought a NASCAR race would be. And after 30 years, I mean, I just celebrated 30 years working in the media. I'll be 48 years old this year. I started when I was 17. I have always had certain ideas of what I thought I would see when I go to a NASCAR race. And I finally went to my first NASCAR race this past weekend. Anybody who's covered the show watched the show over the last couple weeks, we had Kyle Larson on the show, we had Bubba Wallace, we had Carson Hocevar. We really leaned in to NASCAR, with it being here in Las Vegas, which is where our show is based. And I thought it was a good opportunity for me to experience something that I had not experienced in my entire broadcasting career, and that was covering a NASCAR race and really giving it a chance and letting it in. Well, I got to say, first of all, congrats to Josh Berry, who gets his first NASCAR Cup Series victory. Had success on the Xfinity Tour, and yesterday gets his first win at the Pennzoil 400, his first win in the NASCAR Cup Series, wins it going away late. And I was there on Saturday and Sunday. I went last Thursday for a dirt track race. They call them sprint cars. And I've never been one to fake that I know a lot about NASCAR. I've really started to lean into it the last couple of years and cover it and understand it and get into it. But I had never been one to spend an inordinate amount of time on NASCAR. And now over the last couple of years, I've really started to enjoy it. So the next step was going out to a track and watching a race. Well, we did that. And I have to say, it exceeded my expectations in terms of what I saw out on the track over the weekend when I was there. And we went out with our guy Tino Patino, who was supposed to be on the show today, but he had some issues with flying back to the East Coast. So Tino will join us again on Friday. But I have to say, it was a more diverse crowd than I was expecting. I'm just going to come out and say it. I expected going to a NASCAR race to be largely white males, older white males in some case. And again, I was completely wrong. A lot of people might have the same ideas I did about what you expect to see at a NASCAR race. And for those of you out there that might expect to see one thing, I was surprised. I was very pleasantly surprised, in fact, to see something completely different. There were women out there, there were men out there, there were people of all different races, ethnicities, ages. And I'll also say this. Sporting events today, most facilities are these giant cathedrals to whatever team plays there. The Yankees, the Mets, the Dodgers, the Cubs, even the oldest institutions of sports, the oldest home stadiums have still been made to look really nice. NASCAR's not like that. And I'm not saying these places are, where they have these races are dumps or anything like that. They are massive, massive tracks. I was shocked at how big a 1.5-mile oval was watching over the weekend with this Josh Berry win and what I was able to witness out at the Pennzoil 400 and the Xfinity race, which was held on Saturday. I was shocked at sort of it's very sort of a local feel. Yes, these are big national races carried on Fox, FS1, NBC, Prime Video, whatever it may be. But I was stunned myself to see how much it was like sort of going to a carnival. Like I went outside the grandstand area where the fans are during the race, and I was stunned at how much it just felt like going to your local town fair. The food, the vendors, the merch that you could buy and things like that. I'd go back. I had a really good time. I enjoyed it. Thanks to the folks at NASCAR. Thanks to the folks at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, who couldn't have been better in terms of their accommodations for us and giving us an opportunity to cover the event. I would go back. I had a great time. And Josh Berry getting his first win, snapping the 3-race winning streak of Christopher Bell, who had won the last 3 races. Joey Logano had an opportunity in this race. A caution and a bad pit stop coming out of that caution, costing him. Ryan Preece, also from Berlin, Connecticut, finished 3rd as his nice start to the season continues. But the story was Josh Berry getting his first win for the Wood brothers. It's a great story with Josh Berry getting his first win. We're coming back with odds and ends next. It is just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. If you have not done so already, make sure to check out SportsWrap with Jason Page, the podcast, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, you name it, anywhere you get your podcasts. And you can actually watch us over on that YouTube thingamajig as well. And you can watch us over on Spotify. So a couple other ways to watch the show besides the TV affiliate you're watching us on. You could also check out the show over in those places. We had some good content over on YouTube this weekend as well. So go and check that out. Without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Presented by our friends over at Credit Associates. Are you $10,000 or more in credit card debt in over your head, trying to make monthly payments? Well, there's a powerful debt relief program the credit card companies don't want you to know about. Overcome the debt trap of multiple credit cards, high payments, and high interest rates that keep you in debt for decades with one affordable low monthly payment. Credit Associates Debt Relief Program can help you resolve your debt in as little as 24 to 36 months. What could be better than that? Saving you thousands of dollars and decades in debt. Find out how much you could save right now by calling 1-800-747-5362. That's 1-800-747-5362 with our friends from Credit Associates, or just scan the QR code below. Odds and ends. The end of the Cleveland Cavaliers' 16-game winning streak. It comes at the hands of the Orlando Magic. Here come the Magic. So the 11th loss of the season for Cleveland. They could lose one more game and still win 70 in the regular season. Wow. Matter of fact, the Thunder, or I should say the Cavaliers right now, 70-plus wins, 70 wins or more in the regular season right now on FanDuel. The Cavaliers are plus 710. Plus 710. And if you want to try and bet between the Thunder or Cavaliers, which one winds up with more regular season wins, believe it or not, the Thunder are minus 145. The Cavaliers are minus 110. So, if you're interested in those sorts of things, go and check that out. And right now, the Cavaliers' third best odds to win the NBA Finals, to win an NBA title. They are plus 500. The Thunder at plus 185 along with the Celtics right now. How about this, though? The Warriors are surging. And we all seen how great the Warriors have played since Jimmy Butler got there. The Warriors have the sixth best odds right now to win an NBA championship. I mean, that's wild when you consider this was a team that, you know, some people might be thought they were ticketed for the play-in. Warriors right now are sixth in the West. They're 39-28. They've won 9 of their last 10. They're just 3 games behind the Lakers for the 5th seed. Things getting very interesting out there in the West with what the Warriors are doing. And right now, the number keeps shrinking on the Warriors. As I said, they are plus 2,100. So 21-1 odds right now on the Warriors to win the whole thing. Lakers are 17-1. Nuggets are 16-1. That's your top 6 as we have them right now. NFL news. Congratulations, Derek Stingley. Derek Stingley gets a huge contract extension. Highest paid DB in all of the NFL now. He gets 3 years, $90 million. If there's one constant about this NFL offseason, isn't it this? That we just constantly see guys getting the highest paid deal at whatever their position is. We've seen it at the quarterback position, Josh Allen, just getting paid recently. We've seen it with Saquon Barkley and the contract he just got. Now here's Derek Stingley getting the contract he just got. It's the way it is right now in sports. You don't have the honors of having the highest paid contract for very long in professional sports these days. Cooper Rush has been the backup quarterback for Dak Prescott, and he's had to play it quite a bit with Prescott dealing with some injuries over the last few years. Well, Cooper Rush will now take that backup role to Baltimore, where he will be the backup quarterback to Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Rush signing a deal there, so congratulations to Cooper Rush. Cowboys lose somebody else in what has been a miserable offseason so far for Cowboys fans. You might be hoping that this Cowboys team was going to pull the trigger on something in this offseason. Everybody's just waiting around saying, what is it? Micah Parsons doesn't know. Oh, man. Cowboys are just a mess. An absolute mess through this NFL offseason so far. We'll see if they do anything. Maybe it's the draft they have their eyes on. So let's go with that. It's the draft for the Cowboys. That's what they have their eyes on. Everybody's making moves in this offseason except for the Cowboys. We were talking about with Jason Cole before, what do you do if you're the Giants right now? What do you do if you're Pittsburgh? What are you doing if you're Minnesota when it comes to, obviously, Aaron Rodgers, who is a possibility there? I still like the idea of Rodgers just waiting. I know everybody's going to say he needs the reps, but other than Minnesota, is there a team out there that he's got a shot to win a Super Bowl with this year? Boy, if you're the Vikings, do you really want to hold JJ McCarthy back for one more year and have him play behind Rodgers, who I don't think wants to sit there and be a mentor? Guess we'll wait and see. It's going to wrap it up for us today, or just me. Thanks to our friends Ryan Ballengee and Jason Cole for stopping by. Back with another edition of Sports Wrap tomorrow. We'll see you then.